All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for jumping on for our final series session within the webinar series that we're doing for our admitted graduate students. So today we have a great panel of three of our current students across three of our different programs actually for our graduate students. So we'll jump into a panel discussion with those students and get a sense of where they're at, kind of what they're doing, and where they're looking to go career-wise, and we'll take it from there. But let me just start. I'll start with Ansel, and then we can go to Buvish, and then Trine, and then we'll jump into the actual discussion here. But go ahead, Ansel, and then we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everybody. My name's Ansel Amana. I'm in the Global Supply Chain Management program in the College of Business. I also did my undergrad at RIT, and I was a dual major in supply chain and information systems. After I graduate, I plan to work full-time for ITT as a supply chain analyst.
Thanks, Ansel. And then Buvish, I'll have you go next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Buvish. I did my undergrad from RIT in computer engineering and political science. And I moved to Saunders. I'm currently pursuing technology, innovation management, and entrepreneurship. I'm currently on a co-op with Retail Business Services. It's a company based out of Boston. I'm working remote and just happy to be here, answer any questions you guys have.
Thank you, Buvish. Appreciate that. And we'll get some questions to you early because I know you got to jump off, but I appreciate it. And then Trine, if you could jump in next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Trine. I am also an RIT student. I have finished my undergrad in applied mathematics at RIT in 2018. And just last year, I started my graduate studies in business analytics at Saunders, and I will be graduating this May.
All right, thank you, Trine. I appreciate that. And thank you to the folks that were able to jump on live today. We certainly appreciate that. And I know we'll have a handful of folks viewing this after the fact as well. So I think the first component of this, because we're going to have people viewing this from different lenses, right? So we're going to have students coming at this from the perspective of making a decision. So they're still kind of determining what they want to do and where they want to go to grad school, and others that have committed and ultimately have, made that decision and deposit. But I think for the three of you, and Buvish, I'll start with you. And I know you were an undergrad RIT student as well, but what ultimately led you to choose Saunders for graduate study? Like, what was one of the key things that kind of factored in there? And it can be a multitude of things, but what was something that kind of pushed you, or a number of things that led to ultimately sticking around and pursuing that grad degree?
So I did my undergrad degree, which was heavily technical, also from RIT. And I was quite involved on campus with entrepreneurial ventures. But me committing to a grad degree at RIT was solely because it is at the perfect intersection of technical as well as business. So RIT as a grad program is at the sweet spot of business and technology, which I believe is the future of most entrepreneurship. In 2022, you can say all companies are tech companies at this point. Even if it is in services or anything, or maybe building a product, everybody needs to be on top of technology. So that was the primary reason. The professors are well versed with technology as well as business. So that was what pushed me to take Saunders as graduate program.
Awesome. Thank you, Buvish. And Trine, I know you were at RIT Croatia, correct, as an undergrad student, if I'm not mistaken?
So actually, I'm from RIT Kosovo,
okay,
but
right.
I came at RIT, I transferred here during my undergrad, and then I finished applied mathematics.
Okay.
Bachelor's of Science, yeah.
Perfect. So from your perspective, what kind of led you to this and locked it in for you in terms of kind of studying here and if it's the same as Buvish or if there's additional pieces that helped make that decision for you?
So similar to Buvish, I had a very technical degree, it was mathematics. I worked for 3 years at Paychecks, And I really saw how unprepared I was for the real world out there, because undergrad tends to be very technical in general. I chose Saunders because of the high rankings, especially in Northern America. Alumni is very well connected when it comes to Saunders. I met a lot of Saunders people outside of RIT. They were always able to help or steer you to the right direction. And when you look at the professors, typically all of them have some industry experience, and they can speak to the real world, and they can bring all that knowledge that they got from the experience on top of like the book knowledge into the classroom.
That's awesome. And that's a great point. I think, you always want to have that industry connection and that emphasis and assistance there in terms of connecting those two angles. So Ansel, I'm going to throw a little bit of a different angle on the question, but what would you say has been the most challenging part for you in terms of grad study? Like, are there certain challenges that you had to kind of overcome, or differences in terms of undergrad versus grad study? What would you kind of label it as something that was a little challenging, initially jumping into grad school?
I think the biggest thing for me has just been difficulty of classes. I found that professors are definitely willing to work with you, but I mean, it's grad school. You're gonna have harder classes, more challenging material. You need to be more independent. So for me, the challenge of the difficulty of the classes, and then I was also working while doing my studies, so it's balancing that and harder classes has definitely been the most challenging thing.
And Ansel, and from your perspective, what did you do in terms of, are you doing 4, 4, and 2 in terms of your sequence of classes?
Yes. So the first semester was like 20 hours of work in four classes.
Okay.
And then this semester is 30 hours of work in 4 classes.
Okay. Yeah, so that's good context, because I think a lot of students, especially jumping in, are looking at those options, right? Some of our IT students might want to try and do 5 and 5. And if they aren't working, that might be possible. But if they are, that's a challenge, right? And that's something you want to factor in. So that's good context. And I know the 3 of you are all in MS programs, so the structure and course sequencing looks a little different than the MBA would, and the MBA lends itself, if you're getting course waivers, to potentially doing that 5 and 5 route. But predominantly, students are doing a full calendar year when they're studying, and that extra 2 to 3 months. In the long run, that's 1% of your career potentially when you get down to it, and at the end of it. So, I think the other piece, obviously, that is big in terms of studying, and especially for our international students, is co-op. So obviously, co-op is not required for a graduate program, but it is something that students can certainly pursue. So Bhuvish, I know you're doing a co-op now. How has that experience been, and what was it like in terms of the search process and kind of building that in?
Thanks, Matt, for that question. So I know that co-op is not a requirement, but even then, the graduate departments at Saunders was the one which helped me get this co-op. So a graduate department is constantly sending out co-op links, resumes. They're connecting the companies, even by founders and alumni, to reach out and making these connections. So the search process was quite easy for this particular co-op. And you just need to know the correct people, and there are people to help you out. In the career services, I believe there's a specialized career services just for Saunders graduate student as well. So that was quite easy. I'd like to tie in what really helped me in my courses, which I could take to the co-op. So the graduate courses really helped me to learn how to work in groups, and all the courses were very group heavy, project heavy. And I could take that from the courses and implement it in my co-op, because everything in the real world is a lot more interactive, collaborative, not like what I was pursuing in undergrad, where I can sit in front of my computer and finish everything. I have to sit with a bunch of people and bring results. So that was something which I learned from graduate courses. And I know I answered something else, but yeah, wanted to tie that.
No, but that's a great point, because I think we emphasize that when we talk to students about the curriculum and how it's structured, because it's really, that group setting and working with others is so vitally important. So I'm glad you brought that up. So go
Sorry.
ahead. Yeah.
I did have another point for any international student who goes ahead and sees this. So almost all of the graduate programs are STEM based. So if there is any international student, they are getting the 1 year of CPT as well as the extension after they graduate. So I would say the programs are designed in a way so that you are able to get that work experience as well along with the academics. So that is a very big plus point which the Saunders is offering. So just want to put that out as well for any international students.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yes, all of our graduate programs at this point are STEM designated. Outside of a couple of the online programs, obviously those don't carry a STEM designation, but all of the MS programs are currently STEM, and the MBA is now STEM too as of last year. So, that's a big, plus there, and that does certainly help international students pursuing those work experiences in the U.S. So Ansel and Trine, anything you want to add with respect to the co-op? I think the other piece of that question is, and Ansel, that you can probably speak to this too, because I know you did a couple co-ops as an undergrad, but again, the experiences are similar, but how you feel that's prepared you for the workforce in terms of just the content and jumping into a position. How do you feel that it's helped in that respect?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me, at least starting off in my undergrad, was you learn all this material in school, but you don't really learn how to interact with people in a work setting. Like as simple as something as like how to send an email. Like you might not think it's super simple, but if you send an email that's like writing an essay, people are going to come ask you like, what are you trying to tell me? So learning how to be more effective of a communicator was something I learned on my co-ops, and just how to apply what you're learning in the classroom to real world. Because when you start your job, you're not going to know everything, but what you're going to learn is how do you pick up information quicker and how can you apply it. And that's where and you'll notice your technical classes will really come in handy, but you'll learn how to communicate that information when you're actually working. And I did do my co-ops in undergrad, but I know the career fair is still available to everybody, regardless of undergrad or graduate. And people that I know who have gotten their co-ops, most of them have come through the career fair, which is an excellent resource.
Thanks, Ansel. Yeah, that's great stuff. So, Trine, before I come back to you, Bhuvish, I know you have to jump off. I think the last thing I would just ask is any advice or recommendations for the viewers and attendees as they kind of progress through this and are looking at their options and kind of finalizing, their decisions.
I would say look at the curriculum, look at and reflect on the gaps you have in your knowledge and corporate world. Take those courses specifically so as to fill those gaps, and then make the most of the work experience you can while parallelly pursuing your education. So take the courses which challenge you the most, because all of the courses are really great. The professors are amazing. But if you think you're comfortable with the course, then there's no point in taking that. Take the courses which challenge you. So
thanks, Bhuvish, and I appreciate it. And you can jump off at any point. And that's fantastic, because when we're talking with students, some students come to us and say, oh, well, I just want to do marketing again. Well, that might not be the best option. You want to extend yourself and push yourself into other areas. And that's why it's, a good idea for engineering students to think about MBAs. And I know Bhuvish is coming from a different background as an undergrad, but also from a business perspective, there's so much that falls under the business realm. So there's a lot that goes into that, and you can extend yourself in so many areas, like things like analytics, as I know Trine's in that program. So I appreciate that. And thanks again, Bhuvish, for jumping on here for that short period of time. I know you have a hectic schedule, so I really appreciate that. But Trine, if you could just add anything regarding the co-op, if you have plans for that, or any experiences you had as an undergrad or what that has looked like for you, and then just any thoughts you have career-wise and what you're planning from that perspective.
So actually, I am not going for a co-op during my grad studies. I do want to tell everyone, especially international students, that you can work on campus at RIT, and that's what I'm doing right now. Especially when you're from Saunders, a lot of other departments are going to hire you. And you'll build all of those connections again. I know Simone Center has a lot of has very good relationships with professors in Saunders, and you can work on in a lot of big projects like marketing or innovation, business analytics itself. I know my program has also business analytics competition, which I am myself partaking, and there are a lot of other big projects and real life projects that you can be part of, that you can put in your resume. It will help you build those connections. And when you go on interviews, I always speak to my projects with RIT, because they are Kaggle competition. It's real data that you're working on.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. And it's a good segue to the next question. So have either of you gotten involved in clubs or organizations within Saunders? And what has that experience been like? Because I think some students view it as, well, it's a club, so it's just, I don't know if I should go or not. But we do quite a bit, I know, professionally with tie-ins to the club. So what have your experiences been from a club standpoint and organization standpoint within Saunders?
Yeah, I can go first. So I'm involved with Apix, which is essentially the supply chain club on campus. I'm the president of that club. I took over in the fall of 2021, so this past fall. And there's basically a club for every major in the College of Business, I would say. There's a marketing, there's a business, technology professionals club, which is like MIS focused. There's a finance club. So there's a club for literally everything. And sometimes these clubs are having a guest speaker come in and learn about what it is that they do specifically. We've had people come in who work in procurement and for L3 Harris, so doing aerospace or communications. We've had people come in for retail. We've had people come in for healthcare. You bring in guest speakers, you get to learn about what are some things that I want to do in the real world. We also have networking events, and you'll see, I know BTP just had like a Jeopardy event. So some things are fun, some things are more learning. There's really a club for everything. And one of the biggest things is you get to meet people that are in that club that are current students or maybe they're alumni. And that's how you kind of build your network. You hear everybody talk about networking, but what does that mean? It could be as simple as going to a club and meeting someone. Maybe it's meeting someone on the e-board who graduates and then they send an opening to that club later on. There's really so much that you can do, and there's a club for everything. And I wouldn't be worried about staying inside your major either. You can go venture out to other clubs. I know a lot of people join the finance club just to learn more about like stock markets like that. So there's really something for anything and everything that you'd want to do.
Thanks, Ansel. And Trine, anything you want to add there?
Basically all the same points with Ansel. I just wanted to say that I know that Bhuvish also mentioned the career fair that RIT has. I do know that Saunders does have something similar to that just for Saunders students, correct, Matt?
Yeah, we do. We try and do a networking event in advance of the career fair, if we can.
Like First American Equipment, I've seen their table a couple of times in Saunders. Yep. I forgot the name of the company, but I saw another company a couple of weeks ago. So I do know that within the clubs too, you can get those networking going on, and you'll have even better chances of a referral. But basically there's a club for everything at RIT, even outside of your major.
Awesome, thank you. So I think we're getting towards the end here, and we'll wrap here in a few minutes. I think one of the other questions that I think is important as well, and we've kind of alluded to this a little bit, but I think it's good to circle back. What either of you, what are some of the differentiators that you feel have helped you in terms of either set yourself apart in the job search process, or you're anticipating that's going to help you kind of set yourself apart from that career perspective? Ansel, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is like the technical skills that I'll be coming out with. And so I'm in the supply chain program, but it is very technical focused. So we have a class that's dedicated to business intelligence entirely in R. We have SQL classes. We have a few other like classes that revolve around like Tableau and data visualization. And for a business school, you don't always see students coming out with like technical experience. We did Apix, did an event with University of North Texas, and they were really interested in our program because their supply chain program is not tied in with their business intelligence program at all. And one thing that our college, like Saunders specifically does, is offers like analytics classes for everyone who's a graduate student. I know in my global business analytics class, it was half supply chain students and also half MBA or technology innovation management students. So really that exposure to having technical skills, because everything, like Bhuvish was saying earlier, everything is technically focused now. And being able to learn that is really important. And then one last point, the technical skills that you learn, it's all about framing it in a managerial perspective. So how do you convey your analysis to a manager, which is huge, because if you're coming from a technical background, oftentimes you're really focused on the data side and not maybe the story that the data tells. In the College of Business, it really ties everything together.
Thanks, Ansel. That's awesome. And that's I think that's one of the big things, top 1A, 1B, that helps our students certainly, stand out, even if it is, more of a career that you might think isn't as technical, like something like marketing. We have STEM-based classes 4 or 5 in marketing analytics, search engine optimization, that type of stuff. So there still are ways in which you can weave that stuff in and again help differentiate yourself on the back end. Trine, anything you want to add there? I know you're doing business analytics and you're diving deep into that technical stuff as well, but any other points of emphasis there?
Yeah, basically, as Ansel said, it's just you guys would be surprised how many technical people are really good in coding and just sitting in front of a computer and knowing everything when it comes to coding, but they can't present the data or draw conclusions to that. And I think that the courses at RIT, which I know a lot of courses in BA and MBA, they overlap. A lot of these courses are going to teach you how to apply that knowledge and how to, for example, write a business memo, write a really detailed report, how to draw conclusions and how to make predictions. All of those, how to speak a language that a manager in IT or a business analyst, a project manager is going to understand you. And I think that RIT students get differentiated a lot by their technical skills for sure, but also just working in projects, big projects that RIT offers, and each class is project based. And that's something great because you get to work with different people who have different work ethics, come from different backgrounds. So you'll get to learn a way of communicating in a certain way to different people, and also how to tolerate them because you won't get along with everyone. And it's a lot of exposure, it's a lot of growth. But I do think that the projects, especially the ones in the classes and with Simone Center, are going to differentiate you for every other college.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I think those projects and that work that you're doing, those are tangible things you can take away. And frankly, you can almost treat it like a portfolio at a certain point and have that kind of in your background to use and show companies kind of what you've done there. So that's a really good point. And we have students that do consulting work. We have students that partake in a lot of that stuff. We have companies that'll bring us those types of projects and want business plans done and things like that. And our students are doing that in the classroom. So again, it's, it's experiential from the sense of, yes, you have the opportunity to do a co-op, but it's also very experiential in the classroom too. And that's, I think Caltrine's, mentioned that a few times, and I think it's an important point to keep in mind. So I think I'll wrap with that last question that I asked Bhuvish with regard to the advice that you would have for the attendees, whether they've deposited and are committed to coming, or if they're still making that decision, what kind of advice would you have for those students that are, at different points in the process? And Caltrine, I'll start with you on this one.
All I can say is that the experience that you're gonna get is something like you're investing in something that's gonna serve you for your entire life. And I know that technology is moving very fast, but if you have a very strong foundation and if you make those connections, which RIT is gonna help you make, you will always be like on step with everything that's going on in the world. For all the international students, these degrees are all STEM based, so you get 3 years of OPT. There are higher chances that you're going to get an H-1B. And I just want to say that a lot of students at RIT are international and they all want to go for an H-1B afterwards. So good networking over there as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Caltrine. Yeah, I think one of the big things to note is that we are very close to being 50-50 international domestic students at the grad level. I mean, we are to a point that, because again, a lot of our programs are STEM, we're, at a, probably pretty darn close to that 50-50 mark for that. So there's a lot of resources out there for international students with respect to not only co-op and things once you're here, but also helping, assisting you, finding those opportunities. And then we have the International Student Services Office as well, which can assist with things like, the OPT STEM extension, like what do you need to do to ensure you have that when you're done, the H-1B stuff, assistance and just recommendations there. So, that there are those resources that you can certainly leverage. But Ansel, any other, advice, recommendations that you would have?
I think I would like to just echo what Bhuvish was saying earlier. Look for the skills that you can really learn in grad school. So if you're coming from an engineering background like Bhuvish did, try and look for some classes that are maybe more on the managerial side, like a project management or a marketing or even a negotiations class when you're coming in. If you're coming from maybe a management background, maybe look for something that's a little bit more technical, like the global business analytics class, something like that. Really just be honest with yourself, look at what you've done and look at the classes that are available to you and really try and pick what you think would fit best. I know there are some requirements, but you also have about, I think, 4 electives. So you can really be flexible with how you craft what you're going to take.
Yeah, thank you, Ansel. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, most of the programs do have, at least 3 electives, a lot have 4. And I mean, that's 40% of the program. So that's a good chunk. And then with the MBA, it's 5 electives that are built in of the, 16 classes you have there. And, you can kind of develop and weave in that focus area that you might want to hone in on. So any last minute questions from the audience that anybody had, or any other points that folks wanted to jump in on?
I just have one last point, sorry.
No, you're fine.
You mentioned the electives and something clicked. So I know a lot of, when I was choosing my electives, it's a tough decision because you have a certain number of electives that you want to choose. A lot of them, to me, were kind of overlapping, so I really wasn't sure which one to go for. And I just want to say that the professors at Saunders are more than happy to help you with making those choices. And if you are interested in a certain position, like for example, I want to become a business analyst specifically, they will tell you exactly, based on the job descriptions that they see, they will tell you exactly which electives are going to serve you the best in the future. And that's something that I've taken advantage of since day one at RIT.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the faculty, are there to teach classes, but they're a great professional resource too. And frankly, that spans, recommendations on courses, but also networking opportunities and, just things that they're involved with. Even if you want to get involved with research, like there might be opportunities, we have plenty of students that will do research type of support for faculty once they're here as part of their grad work and as a grad student kind of worker position, similar to a grad assistantship type of deal. But yeah, that's a great point. Awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody jumping on. So this will wrap our formal webinar series. Just a couple notes for attendees as we kind of go forward and progress with things. Obviously those that have paid your deposit, you should be hearing from an advisor soon. We have 2 graduate academic advisors, so you should be hearing from them at some point here in the near future regarding course enrollment and all that type of stuff. If you haven't yet, that's the process. So, if you are ultimately going to plan to commit, you pay that deposit. First step is accepting the offer of admission, then paying the deposit, and then within a couple weeks, you'll hear from an advisor on course enrollments and getting that ball rolling. And then orientation will occur at some point in mid-August. We'll get information out to students on that. Generally speaking, recently what we've done is some of it online and then some of it in person, but we'll certainly keep folks updated there. But any questions that anybody has going forward, definitely feel free to reach out and we can definitely, discuss things further, especially if it's things that are impacting your decision, right? So, if you need assistance in terms of, any last minute questions or, things that you might want to advocate for on behalf of yourself, definitely reach out and we can hash that out. And, I can't guarantee anything, of course, but we can certainly have those conversations. Great, and thank you. So Bhuvish, I know he jumped off early, but thank you to him, and thank you, Ansel and Caltrin. Really appreciate you guys jumping on. And we'll wrap here. But again, any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll be in touch. Thank you again, everybody, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Good luck, everybody.